Leeds United States has lost its commander-in-chief. Jesse Marsch has been sacked. And yeah, it's been a long time coming for Marsch. Leeds have looked very bad, haven't got a win in the league since the World Cup. And all the same problems under Bielsa have really stayed, or maybe even been magnified under Marsch. The defense really hasn't been fixed. There's still a striker problem. And the possibility of the team fading as the year progresses is still really there. And yeah, that's Jesse Marsch. He's the top American manager, or at least the American manager with the best resume. And now he's been fired from both the Premier League and the Bundesliga. I guess this potentially opens him up to the national team, but I think I'd stay away from him. He may be one of, if not the best, domestic managers we could bring in, but I think with how he lives and dies by his style of play and how that really hasn't done well at the top level in a Leeds team that is very comparable to the United States with the aforementioned striker problems, not having the most talented defense, and two and well now three American players in the squad. I think we should be looking abroad for a manager personally, but I definitely give him a chance under the United States if, with the U.S. men's national team. I wanted him for a good bit of time, or at least over Berhalter. But I think with this, we can start to look at other options. And it's disappointing for Marsh. He was just somebody who was trying to, I don't know, prove that American coaches can cut it in the Premier League, especially after the Bob Bradley saga. Is something that we were really looking forward to. And he did provide a place other than Fulham for Americans to thrive in the Premier League. But hey, it didn't end up working out. And well, hopefully things work out for the players because we have a lot of players affected. We have the three on Leeds and honestly potentially one more that I'll get into a little bit later. But let's see how the players could be affected by this move. There are the three American players at Leeds, Brenden Aaronson, Tyler Adams, and Weston McKennie. And before we can really make a judgment, I think we have to see who the new manager is at Leeds because, well, when you look at like someone like a Brenden Aaronson, he's been commonly cited as like this Jesse Marsch guy. He's been brought in because he's American. But no, if you think back at the time, he was getting linked with Leeds like far before Marsch showed up there. Like he was somebody who Leeds sought out and brought in because of his style of play, because that fit how Leeds play with their high energy style. And we have to see if their manager is going to be another disciple of Marcelo Bielsa or if it's going to be a bit of a shift. Maybe they bring in like a Big Sam or an equivalent to a Big Sam and try to go defensive to stay up in the Premier League. And man, if they would have made this decision a little bit earlier, they could have had Sean Dyche. But I think that's what we have to see before we can really judge the style of play. Because we look at Aronson, if they bring in Marcelo Bielsa disciple, I think they'll stick with him because he's been continued to get playing time because of his energy, even while his goal scoring has really dropped off. And I think that they will try to stick with him. But if they go with a more defensive setup and they really need goals by their more attacking players, I'm not sure if he gets in over Nanto, Harrison, since they probably won't play with the 10. Maybe they give Sinistera a chance. Gilhard got loaned out. Greenwood could also play, and we'll have to see how Aronson can do. But we have to see the new manager before we can really make that judgment on Brenden. Then there's Weston McKennie. I said at the time that the signing didn't make too much sense in the current lead system. They were playing a 4-2-3-1, and I thought that signaled the idea that March might change up his style of play. And well, now March is gone. So if we look at the circumstances where Weston was signed, if it's similar to how Brenden Aaronson was brought in because his style of play fit Leeds' style, maybe Weston was brought in to signify a change in that style. Maybe this could be the start of more defensive setup. Because if we do go with the more defensive looking Leeds, then I think Weston does fit in pretty well. When you look at their current center mid pairing of Tyler Adams and Mark Roca, I think McKinney offers more defensively than Roca. And even if he doesn't get in over Roca, then a possibility of changing to a three-man midfield is certainly there, and McKinney would get into that team either way. So I think that if there is that change, I think McKinney would be fine. But if they stick with the same style of play, then we'll have to see. There's a possibility that Jesse Marsch himself wanted to bring in Weston as kind of a low risk signing because it's just a loan move. And if it works out, it's probably because Leeds stays up and he was doing a good job. And if it doesn't work out, he gets relegated and the move doesn't go through. But I think Weston, it's going to be a bit tough for him to play in the current system that they have with the 4-2-3-1 because I think Adams and Roca have been a very good part of this Leeds team. They're certainly not at fault for where Leeds are at. And McKennie might not have what it takes creatively to play that 10 position. And we'll have to see if he sticks with the team because there are some decent attackers with this Leeds team. I think striker was really the main issue for them. Rodriguez had a couple of good goals, but I think he might be better on the wing. And Nyanto's doing well. Then you have Harrison, Sinistera, Aaronson, who are fine, but not really helping with the attack too much. So we'll have to see if Weston can fit in with that new style or old style of play. And because I do think he has the energy, I think he has the stamina and like the running to do it. I like his technical ability, but once we get into the final third, will he be able to be that creative process? Or maybe he's more of a goal scoring guy. We can see him making runs to the box. He's very good in the air. Maybe he could fit into this style play that way, but we'll have to see how it works out because I think McKennie could certainly help this Leeds team, but there is a possibility where he doesn't end up playing that much. And then I think Tyler Adams is fine either way. Like, I mean, he did struggle a little bit after Marsch left RB Leipzig, but I think he'll be good with Leeds. Like, he's been one of maybe even their best player, and he's been linked with some moves up the league. I can't see him being dropped no matter what. He's done well in the current Leeds system, and if they switch to a more defensive setup, that might fit him even more. Like, I don't see a possibility where Adams isn't playing with this team, and I think no matter what, Tyler will be all right. So if they bring in a more defensive manager like a Big Sam or a Tony Pulis, I think that Tyler Adams will be fine. Weston McKennie should be able to play a bit, but Brenden Aaronson will likely have to adjust, and we'll have to see how things work out for him. And if they bring in a Marcel Bielsa disciple like a Carlos Cobarin, say, then I think Aaronson will be fine, Adams will be fine, but we'll have to see how McKennie does with that new system. But Carlos Cobain is a bit of a familiar name if you've been following national team players. The former Leeds U23 boss is currently managing West Brom and Daryl DK. And Daryl DK's finally hit form again after a good bit struggling in England. So, it's a little bit of worry if he ends up getting hired away from this team. And he's one of the favorites to get signed up by Leeds. So that isn't the most ideal situation, but I think Daryl DK is just doing well because he's finally returning from injury. I mean, when he signed for West Brom, we thought it was a really good move because he had his manager when he was at Barnsley. He moved to West Brom and he got fired right away, and it's still working out for DK. So I'm really not too concerned about him. And honestly, that kind of holds true for the Leeds players as well. I mean, it's going to be a tough second half of the season potentially, but after that, like, let's say worst case scenario, they get relegated. I think Tyler Adams has shown enough that he'll stay in the Premier League. It'll probably facilitate a move to a bigger club as they won't have to pay as much for him. Then West McKennie, he just goes back to Italy and they'll probably have a new manager. Allegri's second run hasn't been that good with Juventus. So he could definitely have a new chance with a new boss in Juventus. And even if Aaronson ends up staying with Leeds, I think a season in the championship wouldn't be the end of the world for him. He could develop it creatively, being the focal point of the team. And I would really like to see him in that situation. But hopefully everybody's able to stay up, things will go fine. And hopefully Marsch lands on his feet as well. So yeah, hopefully that everything works out for these guys. Sucks for Jesse Marsch to leave, but I think the players will be just fine. And hey, maybe even helps that works out in the long term and he gets the US men's national team job and he ends up performing well. We'll have to see. If he does get that job, I'll give him a chance. Though I'm not sure he would be the best for it. And yeah, that's all I'll talk about. See you.